Well, hello, folks. Glad to see you this afternoon. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well. Thought I'd tell you a little story tonight. And this is kind of a long story, but we got time. And some of you heard me say some time ago, my last 6 months in Vietnam, I run the PX warehouse. And one of the jobs that we had to do was take convoys and go to Nha Trang and pick up a convoy of merchandise for the PX and for the NCO clubs and Airmen's Club. And so this is a story about one of those missions. Now, we spent about 2 days getting our convoy ready. I had to requisition weapons, enough ammo to do the trip, which if I didn't use, I turned back in. And I'd have a 10-vehicle convoy of trucks and 3 Jeeps. And we had a Jeep at the front of the convoy, one in the middle, and one at the back. Each one of those Jeeps had an M60 on it. On the lead truck, we would have an M50, and on the rear truck, we'd have an M50. And we had 10,000 rounds for each one of those M50s, and we also had 10,000 rounds for each M60. And I required my guys to, on their M16s, I required them to carry at least 50 loaded magazines of M16 plus 1 case of loose M16 to reload with. Now, that was a lot of ammo, yeah. And I also had 100 mortars and tubes for the mortars, because you never knew what was going to happen. And this will prove to be true on this particular convoy. So we left bright and early on a Monday morning at 7 o'clock with everything loaded already, all of our straps and everything to tie down our loads. And we used fabric straps, nylon. And each truck would pick up 2 Conexes of whatever might be in the Conexes. But it all pertained to the PX and or the NCO or Airmen's Club. And so we headed out on our first leg of our journey, which is first leg of our journey was over the Von Roe Mountain, going down Highway 1 from Tuiwal. If you got a map, you can follow us on it. And it would take us about right at 35-40 minutes to get over top of Von Roe Mountain, and about another 15 minutes to get down the other side to Von Roe Bay. Now there at Von Roe Bay, we would get out in the compound area of Von Roe Bay, which was big enough for us to park all our vehicles, and we'd double check all of our equipment, make sure we didn't have no flat tires and so forth, because this was the last point that we was going to have room along Highway 1 until we got to Cameron. So after we checked everything over and everything was looking good, we proceeded to our next stop, or our next leg of the journey, which would be from Tuiwa Bay to Natrang. Now Natrang had a base there, and I don't know what all it consisted of on the base. I really can't remember what kind of a base it was. I don't remember if it was military. I mean, if it was Air Force or Army, or just exactly what it was. But I'm thinking it was Army and Air Force maybe combined. I'm not sure. But anyhow, it was a pretty good sized base, but we wasn't going to stop at the base because we had to go straight on and get to Cameron in time to load up that day. And so when we got to Cameron, we continued on, and after about 30 minutes out of Cameron, we came to a rubber plantation. Now this was one of the largest rubber plantations in Vietnam. And behind this rubber plantation was a Green Beret outfit. Been there for a year or two. And they monitor the activities around the rubber plantation. And we stopped for about 30 minutes at the rubber plantation along the road where we had a slight pull-off. Wasn't really enough, but we had about the only thing we had until we got to Cameron. And it was dinner time, and or close enough to it that we could eat our dinner. And so we all broke out our MREs and ate dinner, and everybody had 30 minutes to eat, and then we continued on. And when we got to Cameron Bay, it took about, to get across the water to go into the Cameron compound, it was a pontoon bridge constructed by the CBs for the Army, and we had to take it over. I forget how much room now we had to put between each vehicle, but I think it was about 40 feet. We could have got closer. It was plenty strong enough to hold us, but you didn't want to take a chance of one breaking down and not have room to get a vehicle to it and get it off there. So we put, I think, about 50 foot between each vehicle. And we made it across without any problems. And we got to the supply compound that we was going to. And I went and saw the NCO in charge of the compound and the lieutenant that was in charge, or assistant in charge. And we got everything ready that we were supposed to get. It was loaded and out in a particular point to load it at. It was all together. And after we got all of our instructions and all of our paperwork squared away, we went out to the loading compound, and they had two rough terrain forklifts, and there was two forklifts loading all the time. And so we got our Conexes and our pallets loaded in probably 30 minutes at the most, because it took longer to tie them down than it did load them. And we got to the last the last thing at the compound there. It was a safe, and that safe was left there, I think, by the last convoy. They didn't have no paperwork on it, And so the convoy didn't take it. It had Tuiwa's name all over it, but there was no paperwork. And I told the sergeant, I said, I know you want to get rid of this, but I said, I'm not authorized to take anything that I don't have paperwork on. Now, if you want to hold it here, I got to come back next week on a cargo plane, C-45, no, C-130, and I'll get instructions of what to do with it. You have to forgive me, I'm a little raspy today. So we left it there, and we didn't pick the safe up that trip, because we could get it the next trip, and maybe we'd have paperwork on it. So after we got loaded, we topped off all our vehicles with fuel. We had a fuel truck that was sitting there waiting on us to get loaded, and as one would get loaded, it would go over and get refueled. And got all of our Jeeps refueled, and by about 2 o'clock, we was headed back to Nha Trang. Now, we wasn't going to have time to go all the way to Tuiwa. We was going to pull in Nha Trang and spend the night at the installation there. I think it was on a helipad or something, but they would guide us to it when we got there, because I'd never been there before. And so we was making it back and going to try to get to Nha Trang before 6 o'clock. Now, some of the stuff that we picked up at the base and camp, at the compound, we had 2 Connaxes on one truck that was full of Mayday food. Each Connax had 6,000 pounds of Mayday food on it. And that was something that really made us nervous, because we knew if Charlie found out about that, and which he probably already knew, they'd be wanting to get that one of them Connaxes or both. So we was having to be very, very cautious on the way back to watch for anything out of the ordinary. It took us about 2 hours to get to where the rubber plantation was. That put it about 4 o'clock. And we was going by the first truck. I was in the lead Jeep. And as we went by the rubber plantation, the road that went back to the Green Beret encampment had some of those blue Dodge trucks that the Vietnamese used to ship merchandise up and down Highway 1. They was all over the place. I mean, it wasn't unusual to see them. And it was a crossroads there. There was traffic coming from both directions into Highway 1 there. Well, one of those blue trucks coming from the right come up, and it hit the vehicle that was in front. It T-boned it, and it cut one of the straps that held down one of the Connaxes and knocked it off the truck, and it rolled over into the rubber plantation. Now, as soon as that happened, we knew it was a put-up job. And I immediately had the boy turn the Jeep around, and we stopped everybody, and we immediately went down and surrounded that Connax inside the rubber plantation. Now, we didn't have a vehicle with a crane on it M246 or anything, which was a wrecker. M246 was a 2.5 ton type wrecker. Yeah, anybody that's been in the military will know what that is. And we was going to have to call the train and try to get one, or the Green Beret unit back there, and try to get one to come down there. Well, by the time we got it, by the time we got everything situated around that Connex, because I just made a wagon train circle right around that Connex, and I put them guns out at a kind of a probably a 45-degree angle in each direction from that Connex. I had them M50 set. On the opposite side of the rubber plantation, across the Highway 1, there was a high bank. It was about 30 foot high. And on the other side of it, there was houses, and it run probably a half mile or 3/4 of a mile to the ocean. Some places 2 miles. But plenty of places for Charlie to hide, because Charlie was infiltrated around the cities and the little towns and villages all along Highway 1. And so we got everything set up, and I was trying to get a hold of the Green Beret unit back there, and never could get an answer on them. I tried the emergency freak and couldn't get an answer. And I tried that for almost an hour and a half. Well, it was getting to where that they couldn't make it before 6 o'clock and do anything anyhow, so we just prepared we was going to have to spend the night there, which we did. And it got dark about, this was dead summertime, or, well, it was really spring, but it was hot enough for our summers. And we knew that Charlie knew from the minute we left that compound that we had that Mayday food on there, and that's what they sacrificed that truck to get that Mayday food. Now, luckily, they didn't knock both of them off, because it's both on the same truck. But it totally demolished that truck, but he got his job done. He got that high angle arm brace that was on the front of that truck, hit that webbing on that ratchet strap just right to cut it, and it cut it perfectly clean and knocked that Connex over. And raised the back of that, boy behind said it raised the back of that truck up about 1.5 foot off the ground, which that was all it took to roll that loose Connex off. And so the Connex rolled down the bank of the road and rolled into a couple of trees. Now, them trees, they was 10-foot spacing between the rows of the rubber trees, and it'd be 10 foot from one tree to the next, or it's what it looked like to me, about average. You could pull a vehicle between them. And we made the best circle that we could. We set our mortars up, had our M60s that was on the Jeeps in strategic places, and everybody was ready for bear. It got dark and nothing happened first little bit of dark. Now, we also had 2 floodlights that run off a generator that it was a small generator, but it would run 2 floodlights, and we had 4 lights, 2 on each generator, and they were about this big around, and they would show up pretty good. It was better than no light at all, and we shined those lights onto those banks, because we knew that they was going to come over the banks if they come from any direction because of that Green Beret unit behind us. And after about, I guess, an hour and a half after dark, we had about 5 individuals come over that bank shooting AK-47s in our directions and trying to get our attention on themselves while they was working their way down the road with a little bit of equipment. And I think the equipment was a small pickup truck that they had stole from some Vietnamese farmer or townsperson. And they got it down to the edge of the road, and we riddled it with M50 fire, so it wasn't going to go be no help to them. And they kept bringing 10 or 12 over at a time all through the night. They'd separate the distance between them just enough to keep everybody awake and on their toes. And it was, we had probably 20 mortar flares that came with the mortars that we got. I think for every 15 mortars you got a flare. Maybe it was 10 flares, I don't know, or 2 flares, I don't know. I can't remember. But we got so many for every 10 or 15 mortars, and which gave us quite a few flares, but we used them sparingly. And we would have a pretty good firefight about every 15 or 20 minutes. That would last about maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And it went that way all night long. We had 2 boys get hit by small arms fire, AK-47s, and I got hit with a shrapnel off of a mortar that went haywire. And what I mean by haywire, it went up and it hit the road directly in front of us, and a piece of shrapnel come back and hit me in the foot. I didn't know it until the next morning. I thought I was stepping in water or something. But anyhow, it went that way about every 15 or 20 minutes for the whole night, starting at about, well, it got dark about 9 o'clock, I guess it was. It was completely dark. And then about an hour and a half after that, which made it about 11 o'clock or 10:30 or 11 o'clock, they started coming over just a few at a time. And it went that way until just about 6 o'clock the next morning, or maybe a little bit before, so when it started getting daylight about 5. It might have stopped around 5. It's hard for me to remember that part of it. But along about 6 o'clock, Highway 1 opened up. It closed every night at 6 and opened up every day, every morning at 6. And if there was a convoy in the train area, he would leave at 6 o'clock and head that way, or go north, whichever way he was going. Well, to our luck would have it, there was a colonel, full colonel, that was bringing a convoy, army convoy, that was on their way to, I believe, well, they'd stop at Cameron Bay, but I don't know whereabouts they headed for after that. But they come down and they got to the rubber plantation at about, see, there was about 60 or 70 vehicles in that convoy. So it probably took them about 45 minutes to get down where we was at, because their convoy speed was a little slower than a normal They convoyed at about 20 mile an hour, and one about my size could convoy at around 30 mile an hour, 35. But they got down there, and the colonel stopped the convoy, and he saw what situation that we had been having, and he come up to me, and he had his insignia bore, so I knew he wasn't worried about whether they would know he was a colonel or not. So I saluted him, and he said, "What's going on?" I said, "Well," I said, "we got this Connex knocked off by one of the blue Dodge trucks that the Vietnamese used," and I said, "It was probably not commandeered by Viet Cong, and they run into that trailer to get that Connex off of it, and they knocked it over in the plantation." And I said, "That thing's got 6,000 pounds of Mayday foo in it. Wasn't no way we was going to let Charlie get it." And I said, "You wouldn't have a M426 record, would you?" He said, "Yeah, I got one at the back of the unit, and because that was the slowest vehicle that they had, M246, and the heaviest." And so they got all the trucks moved over, and they got that M426 up there, and they picked it up and put it back onto the deuce and half that it was brought off of, and we lashed it down, and that was the only damage that we'd had to any of our trucks, was that one. We didn't have nothing, no rounds hit any of our radiators or anything that I can remember. And so he asked me, he said, "Couldn't you get a hold of no help last night?" I said, "Well," I said, "I tried to call the Green Beret outfit that's back here behind the rubber plantation, about 2 miles. And I said, I was on the regular freak, and I said I was on the emergency freak from about 8 o'clock on." And I said, they never did answer. And I said, I don't know what the problem was. Maybe my radio, I couldn't tell, because I never got no answer from the Trang area anywhere either. And so he went back and checked with the Green Beret outfit, and he come back in about 20 minutes, and they went on south. And I told them I appreciate their help, and I don't know what he found out at the Green Beret place. But, well, I know, but I'm not going to let that out. I'm keeping that to myself. But anyhow, we got back to the Trang, and we stopped and checked everything that we could, and then went on to Von Roe Mountain and had our dinner at Von Roe Mountain, or Bay, Von Roe Bay. And Von Roe Bay was a big ship transport. The big ships would come in at Von Roe Bay, and they'd unload bombs and stuff on it for the base of Tuiwa. And a lot of other stuff they brought in too, but that was replacement vehicles and so forth. But bombs was the main thing. And I'd been on, I'll tell you a little story about that in the near future, and what happened on one of the bomb runs. But anyhow, it's another story. And so after we stopped, checked everything over on the side of the road there at Nha Trang, we went straight on to Von Roe Bay then, had our dinner, and then made it to Tuiwa about 2 o'clock or 3 that afternoon. And had time to get it pulled into the PX